he had a previous fiance before that one too. So I think by the time I came around, he knew something had to change with how he was selecting them, because he was selecting them young ones along his line. So he needed a little cougar in his life because he was ready. When he committed, he was all in.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine.
Whether you've been married 1 or 20 plus years, at some point, you realized you were married into crazy.
And that's what our podcast is all about. We offer love, laughter, and a dose of reality as we unpack this crazy thing called marriage.
So sit back, relax, and get your ear hustle on. It's time to start the conversation.
All right, let's go.
Welcome to episode 85 of the Married into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey. I'm Lovey.
I am Snooks.
I am Groot.
I know. As soon as I said that, I thought that I am Groot.
So we want to welcome you back once again to join the conversation here, where you get the opportunity to be a fly on the wall and listen to a conversation between a married couple, like you're just kind of getting your ear hustle on.
Married couple.
Us, the married couple,
yes.
Of 20 plus years, as you heard in our intro.
20 plus years.
23 to be exact.
Mm-hmm.
And so with this being episode 85, we wanted to try something a little different. We wanted to actually start a new interview series called the COVID Couples Series. The premise behind it is that we're going to interview a series of couples across the nation that are ordinary people, just like you, just like us, but have extraordinary relationships. And we want to get to the root of how they came to be. But before we get into the interview, Snooks wants to tell you something.
What do I want to tell them?
She wants to.
I want to tell you that we had the opportunity to be interviewed yesterday. So another podcast that Lovey and I listened to, and it's called Liquor Talk. Liquor Talk. That's how he says it. Vic Jones. And so he...
hold on.
Sorry.
It's Vic Jones, the sommelier of the something.
Okay. I don't know what that means, what all that...
Everybody knows, the so-and-so got a little something on it. His podcast got a little something for you. Meaning that Liquor Talk podcast is a gentleman that he's out of Florida, but what he does is he interviews people, variety of individuals, different backgrounds, what have you. But during the podcast, he's drinking on a little something. He's got a little sipping going on. He'll have little breaks where he's drinking, and it's a lot of fun. And we recommend everybody listen to it because he let us know that our particular interview is going to air on May 10th, or at least that's when it's going to be released. So, but in the meantime, get used to him. Check out his podcast, and it's not completely family friendly. Some of the ones I've heard in the past.
He didn't.
Ours is.
Yeah.
I think he played it down to us, but it's a very fun podcast. And Vic Jones is a great guy.
You're an old married couple. We better kind of act right.
He's being respectful of his elders.
Seriously. And also another thing. So there's one thing that we don't typically do, and it's talk about our merchandise. And I'm bringing this up because I was at the store. I had to go get a couple of essentials. And I'm married. I was wearing my Married into Crazy shirt. And the lady, she didn't really stop me, but she was pointing at me. And she was like pointing and nodding her head. And I was like, okay, like she's trying to get my attention. What? And so she took her mask down and she goes, oh, I love the shirt. And I was like, oh, took my mask down. Thank you. And actually, she just took her mask down to... she put it back up. Anyway, and so she said, where do you get that? Blah, blah, blah. So I was telling her where she can get it, and she can get it on our website, and it's marriedintocrazy.com. So I realized, we never talk about really the stuff that we have in our store. Not really, but... We
don't try and push that on you because we love the edutainment that we provide through our podcast, and we want people to know that...
I educate. He apparently entertains, so...
I guess that's it. That's exactly how it goes. And so, but if you can always go to our website, which is
marriedintocrazy.com.
And
I said that earlier.
I know. I like it when you say it.
Try to put me on the
but
spot.
you can go there and go to the shop, and you can see T-shirt, the I Can for couples that we use, and there's also our coaching packages that are there as well. But as well as the assessment that's there for free. So please don't forget about that. But definitely go take a look and use it. We do forget about really kind of pushing the merchandise, so to speak. But it's there for you. If you feel like you want to let people know that you also married into crazy, feel free to get a T-shirt. I think it would be kind of nice for those moments when we're actually done sheltering in place and you're able to go walk around.
Oh yeah, and it's getting hot now. So, well, not right now, but in the summertime, it'd be perfect.
And if you didn't know that you were married into crazy, I guarantee the shelter in place will let you know.
Oh, I bet some people really know now.
And with that said, that's the reason why we're having the COVID couples interview series, because there's a lot of challenges that are taking place with everybody being home. And we're asking, how has the pandemic changed your family dynamic? And so for the first installment of the series, we are blessed with the presence of Mr. Montay McDaniels and his wonderful bride, Dr. Arrickia McDaniels. So she's somebody that I've known for a long period of her life. And what's interesting, though, is that in this podcast, in this interview, I learned so much about her that I did not know. So it's kind of fun. This gives us a way to really connect, even though we're having social distance.
Yeah.
So without further ado, we're going to get into the interview. So we truly hope you enjoy this. We want to welcome everybody to the Married into Crazy podcast. Today we're starting a new series. It's called the COVID Couples series, and we're going to be interviewing a variety of couples across the United States. Today we are kicking off the series with an incredible couple within their own community. They've been reaching out. They're involved in activism. They're involved in education. They're involved in public service. There's so many different things that they have their hands in. Ministry as well. Today we'd like to welcome to the podcast Mr. Montay McDaniels and his beautiful bride, Dr. Arrickia McDaniels. How are you two doing today?
Good.
Good. Thank you for the introduction.
You're welcome. Hey, we want to thank you for making time to talk with us today. So I want to get right into it. We've got a lot of questions, but first, if you could, can you help our listeners know more about your backgrounds? Mr. McDaniels, what is it that you do? How would you describe yourself?
Let's see here. I work for the state of California in the vocation of corrections. I've done 20 years working with juveniles from the age of 18 to 25, from youth correctional counselor to youth correctional officer to currently now parole agent. So I pretty much work hand in hand trying to provide these youthful offenders services, helping get back into society.
Fantastic. That's pretty amazing. So you covered every angle. You said youth. Now you're all the way up to parole. Are you a parole officer for youth, or are you a parole officer for adults?
Parole agent for youth. Yeah. So I work in the facility, but I'm kind of like a social worker on steroids when it comes to the juvenile justice. So, yeah. So we provide them different type of treatment, counseling, education, just kind of a whole gambit of services to help them get back in the community safely.
Nice. And Dr. McDaniels.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your capacity, what you do.
Okay, very good. So I'm simply Arrickia, right? So this is a chill space. So I'm Arrickia, and I'm a wife to Montay. I am a mother to, I don't know, I've lost count. I think we got 9 now in our camp. And a little grand also. We want to incorporate her into our account. When I'm not doing family, if I'm not doing community, what I do, I guess by vocation, is I teach at the college. I'm a college counselor, and I am a family therapist.
Wow. Okay, so you both, between the two of you, there's an underlying theme: service.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Provide service.
Yes.
I forgot to add, I kind of functional pastor, if you will, through Bayside Midtown men's ministry. So I have the opportunity to lead men there. So it's cool.
Nice. So you got the ministry behind you as well. And I've witnessed you minister to youth, just within your family, and have moments. I remember there was one time I saw prayer moments. You guys have meetings on a daily basis, right? You have like a prayer meeting or a family meeting that you guys come together?
Once a week.
It's once a week, okay.
Yeah, once a week. Mm-hmm.
So before we get to the family dynamics, I'm curious. Well, first off, I'm curious if Snooks is ever going to jump in.
Well, because you're just talking. You say something too. So, okay, for me, I want to, I've wanted to have you all on for a very long time, simply because I love what you're doing. I love service, and I love when I see people, especially young people, because y'all still young, working.
Younger than y'all, but not young. We're seasoned.
I don't know. I'm looking at Montay's beard. I'm like, I was trying to get a Montay beard, but ours obviously came in different colors.
Yeah, it's okay. I got some gray though. I got some gray in the front there. You know,
it's distinguishing. It's distinguishing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
But just, you know, like I was saying, I love what you all are doing. I love watching you all. You're like an inspiration, you know. And I always say to Lovey, I said, you know what, when we grow up, we're gonna be just like them. So
how did you meet? Tell me that story. I want to know.
Man, that's a different.
There's many variations according to Montay. Which one do you want to pick today?
I don't know, but you know, this is a family show, right? So
no, you know what? Hey, bring it. Just make sure I don't have to cut anything out.
Tell us all about it, Pastor. Tell us.
It was a different ministry at the time.
At the time,
he was engaged at the time. How about that? Let's just throw it on out there. Don't tell him that part.
I wasn't necessarily engaged.
He gave her the ring.
Yeah, it was one of those things that we call like a promise ring. It wasn't no formal engagement, but at the time I was seeing someone, and yeah, it was like on rocky terms, I guess you could say.
After like 3 years of seeing that one person?
No, it wasn't 3 years. She's over exaggerating. I would say it's probably not even a year. We probably is going strong about 9 months, if that. Again, this is a long time ago, people. But anyway, yeah, my wife, met her on the job. You know, she was a little cutie, and you know, she was bringing me lunch. I mean, yeah, bringing me.
I was a little.
I mean, you still are, babe, but you was bringing me lunch at the time.
There you go, get it, girl.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but yeah, she'd bring me lunch because I was doing orders. They had some kind of like what you call like a
cafe. It was a prison cafe.
Yeah, and then she was working as a before the doctor role. She was a teaching assistant, so she was always in education. But yeah. She caught my eye. You know, she had her whip done. You know, that was one thing I really enjoyed. She had her whip.
I don't get my whip done no more.
And
you get the bait.
We met. I might have been, you know, I had my little correctional officer's suit on, so you know, I was looking pretty dapper in that suit. You know, a little uniform. She liked me in a uniform.
Ninja Turtle.
You know, and you know, I guess, you know, seeing my legs and my thighs and stuff, you know, I don't know what caught her eye. Whatever caught my eye, you know, her eye, you know, whatever.
Come on, minister.
So, and you know, so I asked her if you want to go to Santa Cruz. And you want to take it over from there? So I did a whole lot of talking.
Do I get to share my version of this truth also?
Oh, you do, absolutely.
Okay. My first encounter of him in the institution, in the prison, there's a track, a field. And oftentimes we would walk, the staff would walk on the inner field and the inmates would walk on the outer field just for security purposes. So when he was new to the institution, he stood out like a sore thumb in his Ninja Turtle suit. I am very personable. And so as he and I were passing, normally the thing to do is nod your head. How you doing? I noticed he didn't have that skill set, and I walked by thinking he's strange, right? That was my initial take. Oh boy. It wasn't until I was doing deliveries from hall to hall on my lunchtime that I came across him. I wasn't delivering you food at the time. He went from going from hall to hall, working like as a part-timer. And one day he just so happened to end up on my hall, which was the mental health hall. And we were all just a bunch of employees sharing about our faith, God, religion, relationships. And he was talking about him and his fiance. Okay. So what did I say? Because I am, oh yeah, I'm going to tell it. Because I like to be resourceful and help people. I made a suggestion to him to take his fiance to Timbers Cove, which is in Jenners, California. It's romantic, fireplace by the ocean. And it was then that he told me, we're celibate. We're abstinence. We're practicing sex. So I walked away with mud on my face because I didn't know preacher man was actually trying to live right. So I felt like a Jezebel because here I am telling him to take his fiance to this place. So what I did is I called him back. He was still on the job. I said, hey, I want to apologize for acting out of character. I didn't know. I apologize. And that's what got the conversation started. Yes. And he invited me to hear him preach at his church. That's what the lie was. I'm going to be preaching. Would you like to come hear me preach?
Yeah, that's correct.
That is correct. It was on Father's Day of 2001. He had a fiance, so I have no agenda.
Look.
No. This is before the invitation to Santa Cruz.
No.
He invited me to church on Father's Day because he was going to be preaching. So I had no agenda because he had a fiance. I get to the church. He does not preach that day. And he says, I feel bad by having you come all this way. Would you like to go to dinner? I said, where's your fiance? He was like, oh, she goes to another church. We go to Applebee's for dinner.
Right.
We order our food and we never touched our food or maybe one bite because it was just that energy. Yeah, it was just cool. There, just all talk conversation, and that's how it went about. That's how we met.
Yeah.
And then I think, was it 2 weeks later we got married?
I think we did.
Yeah.
2-3 weeks later.
2 or 3 weeks later got married.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Y'all wasn't playing around.
2-3 weeks later. That's not like
it was less than a month.
Less than a month for sure. Yeah.
Okay, now I thought we were quick getting engaged.
Wow.
4 months.
Oh, y'all was. We just didn't have an engagement. We just got it done.
We got it done. It was crazy because on our way to we gave you the Cliff Note version, but on our way to Tahoe, it was like we're just having just a regular conversation. I guess date.
Yeah.
Conversation like a regular date, and we just went to Salt Lake Tahoe, and we tied the knot.
That's not how it happened. Let me tell you my version.
Right. So I mean, again, it's more details than this.
He was still living at home with mom and dad.
You just throw me out there?
No, this is a good thing. I'm giving them. This is the comedy piece. We were trying to figure out how we was going to execute it because we didn't have a lot of time to think about this. So He was still living at home with mom and dad, and he said, "I'm going to go to work, and then I'm going to go home, and I'm going to get my suit, and then I'm gonna come pick you up, and we're gonna go to Tahoe." So I said, okay. He was trying to rush to go get his stuff before his people came home because he didn't want his mama to know what he was up to because she got discernment, right? Yeah. And she used to hate on me. She would say stuff when he would come to visit me, like for the 2 days in Sacramento. Don't hold that girl hand. You know that girl got a baby. Don't be holding her hand, Montay. That leads to other stuff, right? That's what mama used to say. So when we did get married, because it was fast, we went to Tahoe, got married. His mom was blowing him up because it was pagers back then. She was blowing him up. So when he finally answered the phone that evening, we were in the bed and he answers the telephone and she says, "Son, where are you?" That's what she said. Yeah. "Son, where are you?" He says, "I'm at home with my wife." And her response, mind you, I didn't have the time to meet these people. They had never met me. Her response was, "Oh, Lord," loud. "Oh, Lord, Alvin, wake up. Alvin, wake up. Your boy done went off and got married." Yeah. And that's how it all came together. Wow. Just like that. Yeah, crazy.
It was quick.
Yeah.
Well, when you said crazy, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, y'all are so qualified. Yeah. But so this is an odd question. You can both answer. Which one of y'all married into crazy?
He married into crazy for sure.
Yeah, I definitely did, but I think it was I know it was worth it. But when you jump in, because obviously marriage is a leap. Because we had to find things out about each other like really like on the fly. So it wasn't no warm up. Hey, let's get to know each other. Hey, let's kind of draw back a little bit, reassess. I met her mom, her family, and her grandma, and it was a blended family. I come from a more, I'm not gonna say structured environment, I guess you can say traditional environment. Black family. Both parents in the home. Working class, and married her and her family. It's more blended. And so we all have level of dysfunction. But yeah, looking back at it, it was married and crazy for sure.
And my crazy, as far as family, we're just amplified. Their crazy is in-house, keep it quiet. That's the only difference. But it's still crazy. It's a beautiful kind of experience, but it's still.
Yeah. We're a more closed family. And then I had to get used to her family being more open. So yeah.
Good way of describing it. You know, I'm curious. You made a statement. And we're going to be kind of fluid about how we ask some of these questions. I'm putting you on the spot here. Montay, you had mentioned that you said, it's more of a traditional, Black family, 2-parent household, this, that, and the other, which I found interesting because here in the U.S., there's a disparity of thought where some people think that the traditional Black household is
Erica's side.
Single mom, raising it versus that. And it's interesting. You have the different perspectives. What are your thoughts on what the traditional or what the typical Black family structure is?
So the unorthodox versus orthodox version?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, looking back at it now, I would say traditional in the line of like, I think looking back, I didn't live in a traditional Black household, looking back at it now, I guess I kind of was born in Black privilege. Huh? I guess I had Black privilege working for me, but I'm sorry, the question again?
No worries. I think you answered it to a certain extent. You talked about Black privilege, and I think that paints a picture. And to a certain extent, privilege is different to where it might be the fact that you had 2 parents, in the household. And tell me a little bit more about your structure, Arrickia, as you were coming, because I think that what I'm getting at is that the way that we grow up has a way of feeding how we actually formulate our relationships.
Yeah. And I guess I would interpret privilege, if there is such a thing, as I was able to take a lot of intellectual assets from my experience growing up in blended families. So there's some things, because if he came from the sheltered, traditional, orthodox version of family, he has yet to experience because he wasn't conditioned under those experiences like I was. So I maybe didn't come into our marriage with that school of thought. The man goes to work and the woman stays home and takes the kids. The father is a disciplinarian. It actually was the opposite with his mom. She was the drill sergeant. But I very much brought a lot of assets from my very unorthodox blended approach. One of the things Montay and we did struggle early on with the idea that what he thought of family didn't match mine, right? And even in some regards, our faith and how we activate and walk that out. He wanted to know the lineage of everybody. Because I'm like, oh, my cousin Ernie, oh, Grandpa Billy, and he was like, okay, now tell me the connection. Why do you need to know all of that? Who's my first cousin? Who's the second cousin? Cousin is cousin. You know what I mean? Uncle is uncle. And that was hard. He comes from a family where they have a family reunion every year. Oh, that's your first line. Your second line. We don't roll like that. You know what I mean? So we used to clash because he didn't understand my narrative, my philosophy. I don't see blood. I just see you can't get no thicker than this. This is family. So that was one of the things that he was preoccupied with. Tripping. I was trying to be nice. I was trying to be astute and educational. Yes, he was tripping big time. And it did cause conflict because I'm like, no, ain't nothing about to change. This is who I am.
Especially, we had our first, child together. I was 24.
Yeah, because when we married, he was 23.
Yeah. So, he started off young. And
he was young, not me.
Yeah. She's a little older, like the older women, what I'm saying?
What's the age difference?
Almost 3 years. Real close to 3 years. Okay. And he had a previous fiance before that one, too. So I think by the time I came around, he knew something had to change with how he was selecting them, because he was selecting them young ones along his line. So he needed a little cougar in his life, because he was ready. When he committed, he was all in to settle down. Kid and all, he was ready.
So,
He
okay.
didn't have to break you down.
So what was the, so you all said you were at dinner and you were just having this conversation, just how did it come about that, you know what, we should do this, we can make this forever? How did that even, I mean, because there's great conversation, but what led to the, like, wow, this is really, and who discovered it first, or was it an aha moment at the same time, or how did that happen?
You want to speak to it? Your version?
Your version.
Good question. You know, there's a lot of deep questions here. I mean, I feel like it's just like a whole nother series.
Well, I asked that because
I stay ready. I'm stay ready.
Go ahead.
I'm not mad.
Okay, so it didn't occur at that first meeting.
Right.
I'll tell you what the confirmation for me that Montay was different was his love for God, like that passion for God. And at the time, probably for the first 3 years, he was really humble, gentle. And that was rare for me to see, to experience a man's man, a godly man, be so convicted. And at the time, I do think he was ready. He wanted to experience love. And I think that was it. That was just it. It wasn't like we planned it. That's the reason why we ended up just getting married. He had a chance to meet VJ and he had a chance to meet Peaches only by default because
So who's VJ and Peaches for those individuals that don't know?
So my sister Peaches and one of my many mothers, a staple in our marriage, who's passed on, he had a chance to meet her because at the time I was in a crisis. KinderCare had released my daughter at the time, our only child at the time, to a family member, and they thought that was her father. So when I went to pick my daughter up from KinderCare, they was like, "Oh, she left with her dad." I was like, "What dad? She ain't got no daddy," right? And they didn't know where she went to. So we ended up having to call the police. Montay came to the house because we're in a panic trying to figure out who took my child. And it was by way that VJ ended up coming, Peaches ended up coming, saying Jonathan, which was Peaches, the father of one of her kids. He picked her up for me, but he came and he saw them only because there was a crisis. But other than that, we didn't have time. We didn't have any intentions on keeping it from family, but it was just something that we had already set in our mind. Let's just roll the dice on faith and see how it, where the dice land, like craps, 7 or 11.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't traditional at all. We're definitely like unorthodox, unconventional. Looking back at it, just like the timing of, I had to actually execute me getting my wardrobe for the ceremony, and it happened that no one was home. Because if someone was home, especially my mom, it probably would have went forward like it did. I mean, it would have been like I'd have some explaining to do, So, yeah, no one was home. I grabbed my stuff, got in the car, and we was gone. So it's crazy. Like,
we exchanged CDs on the first dinner day. I gave him a CD, and then he gave me Tonay, and I enjoyed the CD. I said, but I think he got a gay spirit on him. He was like, what you talking about? He ain't gay. How can you just call somebody gay? I said, I'm not calling him gay, but
I remember Tonay.
Yeah.
Remember Tonay?
But watch this, though. It's a funny story. So we met, Applebee's. My wife owned, at the time, a Honda Accord, like a 92, 91. And, I'm thinking about, I hopped in the car, we riding, and she pulled out a flathead screwdriver.
Yes, I did.
To go ahead and start her car up. I'm
yes,
like, oh my gosh, like, who am I getting with? Like, not a flathead screw. I'm like, is this your car? Like, am I in a stolen vehicle? I work for, I work for corrections. I'm like, I can't go down for stealing a car now.
Right.
I just got hired, you know what I'm saying? So, but how I knew I was getting into some good stuff was I had her banana pudding. You know, she made me some banana pudding. And, you know, once you get banana pudding, it's good. So, yeah.
And you don't even eat banana pudding.
I don't
That's
eat
the
banana.
catch.
Yeah, I don't eat banana pudding. But she made me some, and I ain't looked back since. So.
That's what I'm
He
talking
said
about.
that from the beginning.
It's funny. You mentioned that, you know, your relationship, the way it began was unconventional and unorthodox. And I just can't help think that the greatest, and I'm not, forgive me, Minister, I'm not saying you're on that level. I'm not trying to put you on a pedestal. But my immediate thought was that the greatest heroes, prophets, people that God used are generally those individuals that come from unorthodox, unconventional backgrounds. And he used them in their weakness and their unorthodox approaches to really minister to the masses.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
That's good.
You know,
I'm your good thing.
You are, baby. You're my good thing.
That's right. That's it.
How many years? I don't think we touched on it. How long have you two been married?
2001.
It'll be 19 this year. Look at you. You got your engineer on your side.
2001.
That's right.
For real.
We're a testament, man. We're a testament. It definitely wasn't easy.
What was hard?
Well, I mean, just our personalities. One, we just, you know, like I said, you jumping at something, you have to unravel, unlock. Man, we didn't have a lot of time to get to know each other prior to marriage. We didn't go through the marital counseling. We didn't go through us families meeting together and, you know, over Thanksgiving or a big holiday, or it was like an abrupt thing. And it took my side of the family for sure a while to get to know her. But once they, you know, got to know her, my dad says, hey, we got a daughter. So my dad was really instrumental in making sure the abrupt transition actually went pretty smoothly. It took my mom a while, but you know, my parents are her biggest fans, and so my wife gracefully loved my family. Obviously, with her gifted skill set of cooking, it didn't take long. So they was like, man, you got you a good thing. I was like, yeah, man. So yeah,
I want to speak to that.
So God did a lot of work on my side of the family, my mom and my dad, my brothers. That first year, of course, they're like, man, what did you do? Do you know you like if you're not the black sheep now, you like a zebra. I don't know what's going on. Like you are out of, I mean, just, you know, so.
They were traumatized.
Yeah, they were. They
were traumatized. But out of all four of his mom's kids, he has always been that one to push the envelope with her. Still a good guy, but he would definitely be the talk back kid of the bunch. Yeah. I'll share something funny with you about Montay and us kind of just forging these two families together. Rana, you definitely can relate to this one here. I remember him telling me that his mom, she was still traumatized after the fact, and I still hadn't met them. And he's going through telling me about, you know, it's going to take his mama some time to come to terms with this because this is unconventional. Mm-hmm. And I remember telling him, is he telling me this to warn me of something, right? So I said to him, I said, okay, this is what it's going to be. As long as your mama is nice to me, mm-hmm. I will be nice to your mama. Amen. If your mama don't know how to act right, I will meet or exceed whatever energy she brings to the environment, right? So that's what I told him early on, right? It is what it is, right? So I recall his mom had invited my sister and I and our two kids, bastard children, to their house for dinner. And she's a great cook, and she made her famous fried chicken. But I didn't know how famous it was because I hadn't made it through the door. But I remember Montay and I going to their home, and the mom answered the door, right? Now, I don't know what I had in my mind, who his mama was, but I already had it. I'm feeling her vibe. As soon as she opened the door, it's going to be whatever it's going to be. When that woman opened that door, and I saw how tall that woman was, and she ain't no little woman. I said, Lord, let her like me, because this is going to be a fight that I may not win. Right. So she embraced me from the beginning. And you're right. His family played a huge role in making it work, because it was nothing but love. And if they did have an issue with me, I didn't find out probably until year 16, when his brother, his twin, and I had a heart-to-heart. It was like 2 years ago. I was like, boy, get out of here. Right. But I didn't know. They just loved me so well that I didn't even know that there was a backstory to the front story. So I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We can write a book on that one.
Yeah.
I think that's a testament to kind of like what Montay was saying, just about the spirit of his family. They may not have, they were traumatized, but the love that they have for Montay, they were like, okay, he obviously loves his woman, so let's like her, let's embrace her, let's love her, so that we don't cause a problem. You know what I'm saying? In
Right.
his life, to make him almost feel like maybe he has to make a choice between his new life, his new family, and the old family, even though we're all still one. So that's awesome that you were able to, you know, they were able to do that for you to not even know.
Yeah.
I think it lends itself to the old adage of love conquers all. You lead with love, and I'm not saying it's going to get easy, but a lot of times it would at least give a pathway. Like you said, you didn't find out there was an issue till you're 16.
Like, what?
Didn't know, because love was still, had conquered, and then because they led with that, it allowed them to soften and maybe become more accepting over time. And knowing your personality, you just have a way of whittling down, making sure that you're gonna love me.
I know she gonna hold on. I know you gonna hug me back.
If there was ever a pit bull for love, that would be you.
Yeah, I think it took 16 years for them to feel safe to say something. Is what that was. Amen. Yeah, that's what that was.
So you mentioned family. So you touched on a couple of different things. So I'd like to kind of pivot a little bit. You had mentioned earlier that you entered the relationship with a daughter, Arrickia.
Yes.
And Montay, I take it at that time you had no children?
No kids, thank the Lord.
That we knew about.
So let's talk about that. So married in 2 weeks, and then bringing a new child in. How was that? Coming together to learn how to parent together.
Yeah, a lot of firsts on this one. I mean, it was, I got two for the price of one, which is a blessing. Our daughter at the time, she was 7?
Mm-hmm. Just turned 7.
And it took, I mean, she was traumatized too. She was like, why are you in my mama's bed?
She came in the room and was like, why are you in my mom's bed?
Like, why are you in my mama's bed? That was, oh man. And I was like, we married. She's like, huh? Like, it took her a while to, a lot of God moments had to happen that first year for people. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I just wanted to be, J. Riot's, friend first, and just get to know her. Obviously, I was, not her biological father, but just as her step parent, and then, made sure if we did have a disagreement or issue, I would go through, my wife and try to work that out. But, I think we didn't, me and Jay, even during that age, we didn't have too many challenges, because she was really kind of chill, and I mean, she had everything she needed pretty much. I do look back on those times, and not that I regret, but I wish I was more intentional with her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish I was more intentional with Jay, to kind of help her, navigate, not having her real dad there. So, yeah, and that's one area of my, fatherhood I wish I would have been more intentional with her and had those, date nights with the daughter. That kind of thing would have definitely been helpful. Not saying it would have changed some of her experiences, but I think she would have had a different perspective.
True, but you got to realize, man, that stepping into a situation like that 2 weeks in, even, with every child, there's no manual that's given to us. We got to figure it out every single time for each one. So it's part of the process.
Yeah. But even in that, like I say that, I'm not, as an honest critique for myself, okay, 2-3 years in, she's getting used to me, my personality. By age 10, 11, I probably I should have been more intentional. So when I say, like, in context, yeah, we lived in the same house, we moved, we had, more children, but even in that, I still could have been more intentional with the oldest, child, and looking, how I'm intentional with, my son and my daughter, and we trail sports with Maya. We do our date nights, once a month. And so I could have did that. But again, I was immature, wet behind the ears, learning, like I said, there's no manual, learning on the fly, trial by error, if you will. I have great parents, and so I would talk to them, ask them questions, but really, like, no one mentored me into this. It was more just, yeah. So, yeah.
So, Erica, I want to ask you, so Montay is more like, Montay and I are probably more on the same level as far as coming into a relationship with no children, because Lovey did have Kaylin when we first got married. So how did you deal with, or how did you feel about, like, if there was ever a need for discipline, even though Montay said he pretty much deferred to you with Jay, but how did you handle him? Even though he was your husband, he was kind of still, for lack of a better word, maybe a stranger to her. How were you with the discipline and with him in his dealings with Jariah?
If I recall my first crisis that Montay and I shared pertaining to parenting and Jay, and it was very, very early on, probably 2 months, real soon. And I got a call from Peaches, and she was at my house, and Montay had kicked her out of the house. And she called, and it's funny because I remember driving up, and she was standing on the lawn. She was so mad. And she was.
How old was she?
Jay was 7.
No.
Jay, or almost 8,
way.
Whatever. Trey was a baby. It was the first. It was
true.
It was soon.
That's not. I never kicked her out of the house at no 8-year-old.
Not Jay. Peaches. Listen, Peaches. If you let me finish, you'll hear the rest of the story.
Come on.
Peaches.
I keep Peaches out?
Yeah.
I kick Peaches out.
Let me tell you my story. My version.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Peaches will validate it. Trust. So she called me and said Montay kicked her out because they had a clash. He was coming in as a new father, lecturing her or disciplining her, and Peaches felt that he was coming on too strong to be new to the family, or didn't feel it was appropriate. When she said something, he pushed back. And this is my house. Woo, 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 woo. So they had a clash of words. He told her she could leave. She left. She called me and said, this is what happened. True to my nature, I said, I'm on my way. That was my first crisis where I have 2 people that I love, my sister and my new husband, who I'm also learning, getting to know. And you're right, he was a stranger in the house. So that was my first crisis. How I've dealt with being the biological parent and parenting conflicts that Montay and I have, because we still have them. My position remains the same, regardless if it's my biological kids or my nieces or my daughter's best friend, Faith, who lives with me. If it don't feel right, it don't look right, it don't sound right, I say something. I don't always critique him in front of the kids. I'm getting better. But if I feel he's coming sideways, I come strong with my advocacy. That's how we have dealt with it. Pillow talk helps when we don't see eye to eye. But Montay will tell you, he by far is the kid's favorite. He is the go-to soft, warm, and fuzzy parent. I am the drill sergeant, Rana. I got my foot on your throat if you don't fall in line. And Montay has really served to be the buffer for Jay and I. And I want to speak to this too, Montay, because I've heard Montay say this in the latter years as Jay is kind of just trying to find her way through life, and he's trying to take ownership of something that's not his to take. She has to go through whatever God had her to go through, so she can get that lesson out of life. I don't think Montay needed to, at the time, looking back, do anything different, because whatever I felt Jay needed, Jay was able to get what she needed to get from Montay, because I would have set it up and I would be intentional. Whereas he maybe didn't have the foresight to see. I'd be like, Montay, y'all go to the movies. You know what I mean? So Jay still got what she needed from him. It may not have been his idea, but I was still orchestrating that time that they would have together. And he did take the initiative on some things, but 23 is pretty young. He was finally getting an opportunity, I think, to do all the things you can't wait to get grown to do. And you got friends now, and you got money to buy things. And so I would like to feel that I gave him grace to kind of explore. And he was always anchored in his family and faith. So we had more than enough room for him to go figure out, you want to be a DJ, you want to be a pastor. Them kids is fine. In fact, I'd be like, these kids got more than enough, because they come from 2-parent household, where I came from one. I was like, what you talking about? These kids is good. So, yeah, I thought you did good.
That's real talk. So when the family became blended, so you said you have 3 children together, right? So you got Jay, you got Trey, you got Maya, right? Am I correct? Okay.
Yeah.
So what are the age differences between the 3?
8 years between Trey and Maya, 10 years between, Jay and Trey, 8 years, and then Jay and Maya, 10 years.
Okay. And all the kids get along great. How's that work? The dynamic. There's
they
2
strong.
dynamics.
Even in conflict, they strong. And they don't always get along, but they strong.
Yeah, they're able to band together like pretty well.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
I've never seen
all 3 of them band together pretty well. They have their sibling rivalries and conflicts, especially Trey and Amaya. But Jay, being the oldest sibling, I mean, she set the tone.
She set the tone.
She was really
intentional.
Intentional, strong advocate for her siblings.
Inclusive.
She'd
take them to the club if we would let her.
Yeah.
They love their sister.
So yeah, she's definitely a big sister. And even as my son now just turned 18, and Maya's on the corner going to be turning 16. They had this closeness, and it's cool to watch as a parent, And yeah, we've had that influence, but like they enjoy their company together. They enjoy their time together, and so with a social media world, they'll post things about each other. Trey is our comedian
antagonizer,
and you got something going on here. Maya, she's a quiet one, and Jay is Jay Raya. So,
so with 2 of the 3, you said 18. So 2 out of the 3 years are quote unquote adults.
Mm-hmm.
No, fake adults.
Call it what you want. That's why I put the quotations there. But 2 things that they do have something in common. If I remember correctly, both of them graduated from junior college prior to graduating from high school.
Mm-hmm.
How did you 2 navigate that? Don't give me a condensed version of how you're able to instill.
God closed one door and he opened another. I was in transitions with the career, and the doors he closed, it was untimely according to me, and he opened a part-time opportunity that turned out to be beneficial, where I can learn the game, learn what wasn't taught to us as far as education and delivery of services and how to make college affordable. So it was by default that God provided an opportunity for me to go and work as an part-time adjunct counselor at the community college. And I discovered some loopholes. Not just loopholes, I discovered that this system was a setup to begin with. And so it wasn't designed for underserved, marginalized families and students of color to thrive. There was a lot of intentional erected barriers that had been erected, historically. And so I just began to I saw one loophole and I began to carve away. Every semester I would learn something else. And Jay was my prototype, I guess. She was my guinea pig to see if this could really work. It never started out with she's going to get the degree. It just started off, we're going to take 1 to 2 classes a semester, and just finding a rhythm, which teachers, which subjects, trying to find subjects that align with meeting them where they were in their interest at that season of life, something practical of interest, something I would describe as families of privilege. They get to pay to send their kids to private schools, piano lessons, art classes and all this, when the community college has free opportunities and it's not very difficult. It's not a wide learning curve for a kid to learn to play piano. So I started with arts and humanities, exploring, let's see how she'll do in this class. But all along, I was only selecting classes that would go towards a bachelor's degree and transfer. You just start with 1 or 2 classes from the time they're in, 6th grade. And before you know it, they have a degree without even having the stress of wondering how we're going to pay for dormitory fees, books, and tuition. That never was an issue because they were at home under that provision. And we were just utilizing this system to create leverage. And she was vested. She bought into it. Mm-hmm. And that was it. I didn't have to sell it. She was vested.
It's like you created a new norm for her. And
yeah. Well, she was going to go to somebody's school. She could either do it the way I was going to tell her to do it because this is going to make sense later. And she bought into it. You got to go to school regardless. Right. But if I can help you cut all this foolishness with high school in half, and then you could get a jump start when you go to college, you only have to do 2 years instead of doing all this general education. You could jump into what you think you want to be and learn about what you think you want to be. Why not buy it? That's a good buy.
Oh, it's a darn good buy, because if I remember correctly, when she graduated from high school, mind you, after she graduated from junior college, she was then able to transfer to one of the more prestigious historically Black colleges over to Spelman.
Yeah.
She high school, entered Spelman as a junior.
Yes, she did, at 17. Yes.
That's amazing. But then, so you found the prototype and were able to apply that to Trey.
Yeah, but by then I had kicked down that door so wide, it was just like, oh, it ain't no stopping us. Now we coming. We coming armed. Yeah, we're ready.
Yeah, I think what Trey did, what Jay did, she was the study case study?
Yeah, she was the case study.
She was a case study. But in to salute Jay Ride, it was a transition for her, but she was a forerunner, which allowed her siblings and the rest of the pack to kind of go through that tunnel. Trey has exceeded expectations. Not saying it's a competition, but I mean, he's able to he's maximized a lot of what Jay couldn't because she was the first one. So Jay, she dug that ground, that hard surface, and Trey was able to even get some more traction.
Yeah.
Behind Jay Ryan.
And just killed the game.
And he's done an excellent job. I think he should have his BA degree.
Yeah, so next month he will earn his bachelor's degree of communications. Yeah, and he got you guys know he got accepted into his master's degree program in Iowa.
So when did he graduate from high school?
In June. So he graduates from Sac State in May, and then in June he'll turn around and graduate from high school.
I just wanted to say that because I think some people may have missed that he's actually graduating with his bachelor's in June, but he's graduating it's May. I'm sorry. He's graduating with his bachelor's from college.
Yes.
In May.
Yes.
And he's as a senior in high school, and he's graduating from high school in June.
Yes. Now he got an associate degree last year as a junior in high school. Yes.
And so now he's going to, after high school graduation, he's going to go enter into his master's program.
Yes.
This year, coming up fall.
In August.
In August.
Yes.
That's incredible. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yes.
We We call it Black excellence.
Yeah, Black excellence.
Amen.
Yeah, and they serve all along the way. They're serving, giving back all along the way. And if anything, I would speak to leading to serve. That has been that theme, constant theme throughout their childhood. As early as they can walk, you're going to be right alongside, giving back, serving, so I can be able to bridge the gap of knowledge so you can understand how to stay away from some of these detours that life can take you down. So they get it. They understand the impact of humanity and giving back and uplifting. They got their father who fills them up with the word, and it's these kids really are rock stars. The education piece is cool, but it's really the character that I think I don't know, what's the word? I'm grateful and blessed to have had the opportunity to parent this set.
Yeah, they're definitely dope kids.
Yeah, they are.
That's awesome. So Maya's going to be graduating. She's going to raise the bar to graduate with a master's before high school.
Maya is the artist, okay?
Maya, the creative. She'll probably, work for some kind of big television company.
Or not.
Or
work at the flea market.
No.
Yeah.
She got big dreams.
Big dreams in her head. She's a genius in many regards because she is creative. She is artistic. And it's really just been a choice for her. Maya has 30-something college credits right now. Maya was at Sac State in the fall, and she came to us and was just like, I'm not trying to go. I'm not in a hurry. She's afraid of growing up. She's cool with just walking this thing out to the beat of her drum. But, she started with her brother. She's, up until last year where he just took off because of the age difference. She ain't. No. She's just a 10th grader.
Yeah, she's only 10th grader.
But she's graduating from high school in December. Mm-hmm. I'll take that. She still has 2 years technically to go.
Yeah. Well, Maya's like what do you call it?
Like you.
Very calculated. She doesn't want to rush anything. She wants to enjoy her teenage years. I think she saw from her older sister, life is tough. You got bills to pay. It's stressful. Being at home is pretty, chill for the most part. If you avoid mama's drill sergeant, if you can't fall through it, it's cool. So in a lot of ways, she'll be happy I can see her till, I say maybe 21 when she has to leave the school, or 18, 19, but Maya's in her own lane.
And that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
Like Kaylin. Yeah, there you go.
Oh. Say no more.
Yeah.
Say no more.
So I want to ask a question. So I'm sorry, I cut you off. So with all this, I look at you all, like I said, I just wanted to talk with you just because you're just doing excellent things by the great educators. That's what I look at you all as. So I know that we started the podcast, he called you Dr. Arrickia. So you have your PhD, right?
I have my EDD, my educational doctorate. Yes.
Okay. So that's a big undertaking. And, that's not, no one goes into, I don't think, that you just be like, oh, I'm just going to do this. What made you decide to keep going on? Because so many people, they're like, oh, I'm just getting my bachelor's, not just because I'm struggling, and those that are navigating that water at an older age. So what made you decide to, I just want to go all the way and just go as far as I can possibly go?
Okay. So because I come from adverse conditions, my childhood experience, and it's just as adverse as it could possibly be, that foundation did not prepare me to be a successful student. And while my sister was able to tap into something, I was not able to tap into that something. So my focus was on being cool and being hard and fighting and cutting up in school. So I think I went to close to 30 different schools before I graduated high school. That's a lot of schools to go to, and probably getting suspended from every last one of them. So my desire to pursue education did not start until I witnessed some of my upperclassmen who were like friends of mine. I witnessed, I was invited to one of their graduations, and their graduation was at UC Berkeley and the Greek Theater. And I went to that graduation and I saw that building, that auditorium filled with all these people who were proud of the accomplishments of their graduate. And I remember saying, I want someone to be proud of me like that. And that's all it took. I went from, that would have been my junior year, like going into my junior year, I had 5 units of high school credit. I completed 4 years of high school in 2 years because I was driven to get that experience, and I wanted to do it with my class. So that's where I learned that drive, that resource. Even if they say, no, it can't be done, I'm gonna find a way, I'm gonna get it done. And from there, I struggled in college because I didn't have the rigor. I didn't have that academic knowledge that I needed. I just barely graduated, right? I struggled, went to the community college. It was through opposition in my career, pursuits that I realized no matter how much money you can make in corrections, because they make a lot of money and they really don't have to do much other than put your life, at risk.
Just that little part.
I wanted that money, right? I've always been driven for wealth and opportunities for money. But I realized even though I was in the door, you have to put up with a lot of junk in corrections or just, systems, bureaucracy. And my mouth is too slick. I said, you got to go back to school because you ain't going to make it. You need to be marketable. So when life happens at work, you can use these degrees to open up other doors. I knew that about myself coming in. So my pursuit for higher education only came because I would be at a season of transition because I had got to a point where I wasn't going to tolerate my boss no more. And I was going to remind them that I'm somebody and, that don't fly, right? So it'd be like, I better just move on because I'm about to light this place on fire. And really, that's how it happened. Like the short version is because I got burnt out and I was quick with my mouth and I'm telling these managers how to do their job. And it was like, girl, you better go back to school because this ain't going to work. And that's what it was, because I don't have a tolerance for the riffraff that comes with these employers. So I'm like, I'll create my own. And I ain't working, so just go back to school. And that's what happened. And he afforded me the opportunity to do that because I didn't have to work, which was kind of cool going in. I knew I didn't have to work. He said, I'll take care of everything. So why not go to school?
That's beautiful. And all of this that was transpiring, your tribe grew. And
yeah, how
was that working out within your home? So you had mentioned, you said you think you're up to 9 now. How did you go from 3 to 9?
Our bonus babies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Faith came to us even before her mom died,
while
she was in high school.
Yeah. So the timeline's kind of be off unless you have the timeline.
No, I don't care about the timeline.
So our first bonus child was Faith. She was always a childhood friend of Jay's, Jiraiya, and her mom became ill of cancer, and her mom and my wife would have conversations. Something happened to me. Can you take Faith in? Faith at the time was going to be a freshman at UC
Santa Barbara. Yep, UC Santa Barbara.
And her mom passed away during that time. And like any 18-year-old student, you can't really focus on your academic aspirations when you're dealing with that type of loss. So my wife told
her back home.
My wife told me, "Hey, we gotta go get Faith." I said, "By all means." So she went down to Southern California, got Faith in her things, and she moved in with us.
For the second time.
For the second time, yeah. And we sat down with Faith, and I told Faith, "Hey, look, this is home. As long as you're able to go to school and pursue your dreams, this is your place." And how long has she been with us now?
Too long. He made the mistake saying you could stay here for. I said, no, she can't. She's 26 years old, still living at home, or will be 26.
Yeah. So
we need her to get accepted to somebody's medical school, and I think it's coming soon, so she can transition.
Yeah. So yeah, but growth happens differently for everybody else, So I said at the time, because I know she needed some time to really get, her bearings and grow and thrive. So eventually, I think, she got about 4 more years, you think?
No, she needs to go next yesterday.
But she's been a blessing. She's not a burden. All our bonus kids have been a blessing. So she listened to this. We love you, Faith. She's been a big sister to our kids, Amaya and Trey. So you there? Yeah. Yeah, we definitely are blessed to have Faith in our home and to help us sometimes, co-parent sometimes. So,
true. Yeah. And keep me back in other kids. Absolutely.
So let's talk about the other children that are there, or the rest of the bonus children. How did you come to them?
My sister, again, blended family. My sister on my father's side, she and I have always had a very rocky relationship. And we've always been on the outs, or she's always been on the outs, I'll say that, put herself out there. And she had lupus, she found out that she had lupus when she had her last child. And she never had any flare-ups or any of that, always healthy. And then I want to say, cut your car on. I want to say maybe 6 months to a year before her daughter turned 13, her youngest daughter turned 13, she had a flare-up and never got better. And ultimately, she ended up passing away from lupus, 43 years old, really young, wanted to live, was pleading to God, please let me live. But one of the things she asked me, is if I would take care of her children for her if she didn't make it. And I remember when Montay and I first got married, I used to tell him I wanted foster kids because I just know I needed to give back. And his approach was like, I'm cool. I deal with other people's kids all day at work. I ain't trying to come home and deal with them. So when things get tough, because, life, things get tough, and all of these kids, even his kids, start working my nerves. He reminds me, remember you said you wanted foster kids. God bless you. It's a foster kid. Don't complain now. Right. And so all of them have fallen in line. We've had some bumps along the way, but I think the reason why they're still there and it's working for them because they also are doing the same thing. They got their college credits now. The reason why it's working is because they want to be there. They know that they're loved. They know that all we're doing is trying to best serve them at whatever season of life. And I think that's why it works so well with Montay. Even though we're learning as we go with these other people's kids, they know our only position is to serve them best at whatever crossroad that they may be in.
And like I said, we've really worked on making our home, our house a home in regards to like we have a space where we have a family meeting. We check in with our kids either individually or collectively. Mm-hmm. It's not just we all go to our isolated rooms and that's how we do life, but we really are say, hey, let's talk, let's share, let's have conversations. The kids, they laugh and they joke around. I'm trying to go to work the next morning. I go to bed, but they up laughing and carrying on. And so we've created an environment where it is definitely open and a space where we can, have dialogue, whether we agree or disagree, right, and laugh about it later. So just recently during this whole COVID-19, I've been pressed to just make sure, because we've been kind of conditioned as a Christian household to attend the church, and with my education experience in that, I said I can bring that to our home, and and so I've been really intentional, just making sure we incorporate a Sunday service type thing, and so where we invite God into our space, and I share devotional teaching. We have the kids will pray. We have right now worship ministry, hospitality ministry, because we have it. We've been blessed to have the property we have, so we can get out. We can kind of walk around the property. We can really explore, fellowship with each other. So that's been going for the last 4 weeks now, 3 weeks now, 3
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're into our third barnyard church service.
Yeah.
Week 3.
Week 3. We had communion last for Easter.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty cool because initially they're like, what are we doing? You know?
Yeah, they wasn't feeling it.
Like, you know, I know, okay, pastor, and we the first lady, we kind of make jokes about it, but now they can see, like, you know, this is what we needed the whole time. Like, so the whole COVID-19 pandemic, yes, it's kind of thrown us into our rhythm, but really it's helped us to draw us closer to God and to each other. Because it's interesting, because I think all of our kids are experiencing some kind of transition. So whether it be from Jay Raya wanting to probably move out of state, to, you know, Faith possibly going to medical school, to Trey going off to Iowa, to, you know, Maya now turning 16, wanting to drive, to, you know, Paris, you know, still trying to navigate her world, and, you know, Quentin, he's trying to think about what school he's go to, or go to the military. I mean, everybody's in their own level of transition. So it's a good time for us to kind of be at an intersection where we can invite God in.
So with that being said, with all the 9, it's 9, right?
Yeah, if you count the baby. Mm-hmm.
So with all the extra 9 people in your home, how do you guys maintain your one-on-one in your marriage? Because I see you're giving to everyone. How do you stay connected to each other to make sure you don't forget about Montay and Montay doesn't forget about Arrickia?
So I get what I need. What works well over the past is he and I both have lanes that we gravitate to, even though they're different, right? He's on this faith, you know, church planning thing, and I'm just all in kumbaya land, right? Because he gives me the space to be able to be kumbaya, and he don't press me to try to conform to conventional standards, and I give him the space to, okay, whatever, bishop, pastor, deacon, okay, whatever. That has worked really, really well for us. But the downside to that, you get out of rhythm, right? And so right now, I'm conveying to him, I want to be more intentional, and I need to be on his calendar the same way that he hosts his men's ministry calendar, the same way that he's conditioned to go to work because he has that great work ethic. Don't just, if it's convenient, you'll give me 5 or 10 minutes of your time. No, put me on the calendar, table it, even if we just sitting down doing this. I don't even have to have an agenda, but I just know I need my time, because I don't want to be so consumed being kumbaya, serving the world, serving these kids, to the point that I miss my opportunity to cultivate something deeper that we have yet to experience in our own marriage. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense, yes.
Yeah, I would echo the same thing. I know prior to this whole COVID-19 thing, we're doing the date nights. So, I mean, we say that, but really like, you know, having a plan, you know, I think for a lot of guys, and you get some poor excuse, we plan for everything outside the house, but we don't really plan for things in the house. And so I think for my wife, what's attractive is when I plan things for my wife. I have been successful. I'm a pretty good planner.
He got a C+ the last time.
I did pass.
He passed.
I did pass, but
we missed the sunset, but he made it.
Yeah, I made it. But like I said, I as a teaching moment, you know, sometimes it doesn't go as planned, but when you have a plan, like that's what, for my wife, it's what she really wants. Hey, are you giving me leftovers? Or are you giving me your best?
Acts of service.
Yeah, so that's her love language, that and foot rubs. So I mean, I try. So
nightly,
I try to do that. You know, that always gives me a passing grade. But yeah,
that is beautiful. No, it's funny. I think it's great that you guys know each other's love languages, and more importantly, there's a difference between, people say knowledge is power, and I'd like to correct her and say, you know, applied knowledge is true power, and knowing somebody's love language is very different from applying that knowledge. Montay, you get an A+ in my book, bro, for just pure application of that knowledge.
Whatever.
I appreciate it. I'm still learning though.
Well, you know what? That's, each and every day. We know that there's more to learn. Me too. I'm not passing over here, so this is somebody from the back of the class looking at you in the front, going, "Okay, I need to learn." Because when you said something about foot rub, she kind of like nudged me.
I was like,
So,
I'm still waiting on mine, so it's what it is.
Oh yeah, hey, I'm gonna teach a class on foot rubs. I'm about to go YouTube, but if you get the foot rub down, brother, you are in the money.
Okay. Well, I'll be one of your first subscribers.
That's a whole nother podcast show, foot rubs and head rubs.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. All right, so talking about COVID-19, you said that there's a lot of structure that you're putting in place.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful, because the one thing that seems to be lacking is that with the shelter in home, all these different things are going on. It's applying structures and procedures in places and homes that didn't exist before. And it's creating a lot of rebellion across the country. We're saying it happened in a variety of different states where it's like, this is crazy. I know some of the reasoning is because of economics. People are like, I need to get that paycheck regardless of what it's going to cost me. But in your home, on your property, the kids say that they're complying now. What do you see going forward? I'm just curious. If you seem to be very forward-looking individuals. You talked about intentionality. What lessons do you think that you can take from this experience in COVID-19 and apply them going forward that may assist you in areas that maybe have been lacking in the past?
You want to go first?
I don't even want to answer it.
Oh, and I can go on and on with this one. So I look at COVID-19, this pandemic, as an instructor, a teacher, and you have a level of show and tell. I'm gonna tell you, then I'm gonna show you, right? So for the person that's saying, you know what, I really put a lot of trust and hope in my job, vocation, or man-made institutions. I mean, that basket's kind of falling apart. So what COVID-19 has taught us is the vulnerability of man-made structures, institutions, government systems, and people now saying, what do we do next? And it's leading to a place of despair and hopelessness. People have been all of a sudden, you can see it through our stores, binge buying, whatnot. So, now we're out of supplies for face mask and sanitation because everyone has this idea of like, I gotta get everything I need because the world's coming to an end. So it's led to a sense of hopelessness. And, how do you balance people who have to go to work and then get, exposed to the virus? And so I think for me, it's being able to say, hey, what matters most to God, obviously, and to my marriage and to our family, and how do we incorporate that? Regardless of our beliefs might be different, like what really matters, and it comes down to relationships, and so for me and in my house, we're just saying, hey, let's draw closer, obviously, to God, but let's draw closer to each other, pretty simply. And then that means taking the time out. Like my wife just said, hey, put me on your calendar, with our kids. Hey, let's have a family meeting. Let's talk about things that's going on in our own individual spaces. And maybe we can share some experiences and help us grow. So what COVID-19 is really teaching us that we need each other. And for some people who've been living isolation lives or living in isolation, they're really struggling because you can be in the same household and still be isolated. So what COVID-19 is really forcing us to do is to draw closer as a community, but more so as a family. And I think for us being, Black family, we need to really just reinforce that, hey, we need each other because COVID-19 is knocking us out the box. And so we need to make sure as Black people that we are able to say, hey, we need to stay healthy. We need to make sure we're eating healthy foods, that we're exercising, and that we are holding each other accountable to what we put in our body, because we have other co-occurring disorders that COVID-19 is exposing or has exposed. So in the Black community. So for me, it's always gonna be spiritual too. But as far as a practical thing, I think it's forcing us to really say, hey, what matters most to our household? and how can we really draw closer to each other as a family.
Good job, baby.
Amen.
Amen.
So you don't want to touch on it at all? Okay. All right. Wait, I just want to say with that, I think it's time to close. And I truly appreciate both of your time. And with all the technical difficulties that we've had, that you had a high level of patience. Perseverance. Amen. And that's what it's all about, you know. And we want to thank you. We commend both of you for not just making the time, but being servant leaders in your household, in your community. To us, we look to you for guidance when it comes to marriages. It's about building that iron tribe. Many times that we talk about in our podcast, you know, it goes back to Proverbs 27:17. You know, iron sharpens iron. But we also say that we as couples should sharpen each other as well. And we thank you for being a part of our iron tribe.
We also look to y'all for grace, because when I'm ready to kill one of the kids, I'm like, ooh, how would Arrickia and Montay deal with this? So
it's interesting why you affirm us. You both have served as an influence in providing guidance to us, really at the times where we both could have been like, we tapping out. So you both have served as mentors when we were in crisis, whether parenting, you know, relational. I still have our I can. And I remember the days where I still have mine. I remember the days where Montay and I both would draw from that and try to speak into one another, being guided by the different affirmations and activities in the can. So likewise, kindred spirit, that's why we're family. Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
And I love the platform.
Yeah, I thank y'all too, you know, just modeling what Black love looks like. Not just on camera, but off of camera too. So thank y'all so much for y'all putting yourselves out there for the world to see, being vulnerable and candid. Thank y'all for just reinforcing what Black love and Black family should look like. So thank y'all.
We can't wait to have you on our show.
Ooh, I can't wait to be there.
and for full disclosure, I just have to tell everybody that's still listening that Montay, when I first came up with the idea to do a podcast, Montay sat right here in my office and kind of broke down what I needed to do in order to even get started. When I was buying equipment, I was reaching out to him like, okay, what do I need to buy next? Okay, so what do I do? And we didn't even get into it. Montay's got a storied history when it comes to being a DJ and working with some pretty established celebrities out there within the gospel ranks and gospel rap specifically. But there would be no Married into Crazy podcast if there was no Montay.
And to speak to that too, Montay has he's always been a cheerleader for us. I remember when we had our Iron Tribe dinner and he was sitting in there. He was like, so when we gonna be interviewed? I remember that. I was like, he don't even know. He may be joking, but you guys were already on the list. You know, you guys were already on the list. When I talk about you, when I think about you, I'm just like, you guys are amazing to me. And when people hear your story, you know, a lot of times you don't want to deal with someone else's child. Montay, you deal with someone's kids all day, you know, and then you come home and you have another tribe and you embrace them and you brought them in and you showed them love. And I saw the pictures when you guys went on the trip to the colleges. It's like they were treated exactly the same way that Jay was treated, that with Trey and Maya. I mean, you made no difference in any of that, the relationship. It's like, I don't care how you got here, you're here now, so that means you're part of us. And not everyone can speak to that. Not everyone can say that that's exactly what they do, but that's what you all do. And it's just so refreshing. And I honestly think it's really beautiful. It really is.
I just got to say too that's a huge leap from, okay, so how you related to him to okay, you know what?
That's
my
right.
doors are
Bring
open.
it in.
Come on, baby. Let me love you. Come on. We got room for you, baby. Come on. That's it. He's come a long way.
Yeah, God is good.
God is good. And I want to say something. Montay and I have never been fond of drinking or social drinking or any of that. Every once in a while we would have a little bedroom sip, but never in the public or in a setting with other couples. So that night I remember we had lamb. I don't like lamb. He don't like lamb. That was some of the best tasting lamb. You started on the grill. It went into the oven. I remember that night. And y'all brought out all kinds of wine. And we fell in love with the blue bottle. We take the blue bottle with us. The Moscato, Asante. What was it?
Asante de Moscato.
Yeah. Oh, the blue bottle was. We got a whole bunch of them in the closet, empty bottles that we be hiding from the kids.
Well, now you just exposed everybody else.
I don't care. We supposed to be transparent. We trying to reach and help somebody else.
It's called being authentic. You can't be transparent. You gotta be authentic now.
See, that's the difference, right? You see there? There it is there. That's the difference.
Funny.
We're going to close out with the same way that we always do our podcast, and that's with the couple's eye can. And so we're going to read 4. Actually, we're going to read 2. We're going to read 2. One for the fellas and one for the ladies that we will focus on this week.
Okay. I'll go first. This is for the ladies. I can run the errands. Okay.
All right, so that's for you, Erica.
Oh, okay.
That was a plural, right? Errands, S, right?
More than one.
It is a plural.
Yeah. But 2 is, running to the mailbox is an errand, and then running upstairs for whatever or somewhere in the other room, that's an errand also. So
I don't know how fair this one is, but it says, I can take my partner on a date.
Okay, I'm waiting.
Hey.
There you go. There you go. Now you have to put it on the calendar.
But it's got to be COVID approved.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
There's your signature for your show topic.
All right. Amen. Amen. Thank you once again. And like we always say, thank you and be blessed.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.